Hello, this is Patromotherapy session number 2, right?
No, it's
Season
number 14.
Yes, episode 14, but number 2 in 2 days. That would be
Okay.
consequential. Did you hear any sound when I pressed recording?
No, I think we're good. I think it's great to be back on the air again. And we actually got a comment from a new subscriber. His name is Ralphie Boy, and he made a comment about where Cup of Joe comes from. So our last episode, episode 13, we talked about coffee and travel and a lot of different things. But, we wanted to thank Ralphie Boy for his comments about Cup of Joe. And today I was thinking we could talk about horses.
Horses, I didn't draw any horses, though. I promised you to. Did you?
No, we
No?
decided the cover shot was a photograph. And the
Right.
photograph I'm going to talk briefly about, and we're just going to kind of ad lib about horses. And what do we know about horses? And what do we like about horses? So no one did any drawing. We're just looking at a photograph. And in the photograph, that is actually a picture up in the mountains above the Sea of Marmara in Karamursel, Turkey. And you will see a man on horseback. He's wearing a hat and a scarf. And it's quite a handsome horse. The name of the horse was Jalal. And when we were talking a little bit earlier, you said that you had looked up the meaning of the word Jalal, and what did you find it meant?
The beautiful? No, I guess. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Was it beautiful?
Yeah, it was beautiful. And I looked it up a little bit. It has Arabic origins in the sense that it means like majesty, like majestic. And the picture's actually of my father, and he liked to be alone. He liked to ride up in the mountains alone. He had a family and he had a job, but he loved to go out on his horse alone. And I think he had I don't know if it's called a personal assistant or some kind of guy that used to ride with him sometimes and kind of take care of the horses or something. But I've always liked this picture, and I have some other memories of horses. But what do you associate with horses, or what do you think about? Have you ever ridden horses, or?
Oh, no, I've never ridden any horse, but I love them as animals. They're so huge and powerful. But what I'm confused about is that their faces, they always look sort of tragic, right?
Well, their eyes are on the side of their head, and our eyes are on the front. So, it's a different way of living in the world. I mean, imagine
Maybe.
if your eyes are on the side of the head and like someone's always like kicking you in the sides, telling you, go, go.
Google glasses, I guess
Yeah.
they're on the side of the head, and people find them convenient, by the way, but go on.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I like that photo of my father on the horse. He also he worked in military intelligence, and we traveled around the world quite a bit. Sometimes we traveled with him, and sometimes he was posted on his own to an outpost. One year, the family stayed back in San Antonio, Texas, and he was stationed at Trabzon up on the Black Sea, and he actually was listening with headsets and also these gigantic, huge antennas that were the size of a circus tent, these huge, giant antennas, just listening to kind of what was going on in Russia. And he also told me a story about how he rode with some people into the Khyber Pass. And the Khyber Pass, I think, is around Pakistan, Afghanistan. And he told me that this was one of the most dangerous places in the world, but that also you could buy, trade, sell, and have anything you want. So the mystique of the Khyber Pass has always stayed with me. And, it is located in a section where, probably drugs and human trafficking and gold and opium and God knows what. But he rode out of the Khyber Pass, and on his horse, he brought back to the United States, when he came back to the United States, these three little wooden stack table trays that fit inside of each other, and they're inlaid with mother of pearl. So they were probably made in Afghanistan or Pakistan. And, they're really quite beautiful. But the idea of somebody riding into forbidden territory is, I don't know, I kind of like it. What do you think about that?
I have few thoughts too. I mean, if that happened to be nowadays, because back then they didn't have internet, and now you just have to open the website and see what's going on in Russia. You don't have to listen; you just read it all day long. And also, I like him. He looks like a Western type. There is a movie star. In all the Western movies, he's number one.
Yeah,
I don't remember his name.
Okay, well, there's a couple actors. One is Clint Eastwood, but I think he looks more like Paul Newman. My mother always said that my dad looked like Paul Newman in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. That type of hat was the hat that Paul Newman.
He does look like a movie star. Yeah, and I've seen your father a couple of times and a couple of pictures, and I caught myself thinking that. Do women find father figures attractive?
Oh, heck yeah. That's why if we don't realize our relationship with our father, we unconsciously marry that again. And it's, it just is like a nightmare after a nightmare. So my father was very intelligent, emotionally remote, kind of a womanizer, and a really interesting fellow. And that's the kind of guys I like. And it's sad. It's sad but true. And they say that what you don't recognize consciously, you might actually live it out unconsciously.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm thinking, what about women who were raised without the father figure? What was it like? What would it be like? Probably.
Oh, well, that's another archetype. There's a lot of people that sadly their father died before the mother, because women live longer. And so those type men tend to be looking for women who will do everything. They will cook, they will clean, they will go out, they will work, they will be beautiful, they will be amazing. They kind of like have these super high expectations of women. And then also, the woman gets trapped into her son being sort of a surrogate spouse, because if the father dies, well, then usually the mother takes the son to be the helper of the family. It's not necessarily about sex, but it's about emotional attachment. So there's been a lot of different wars all over the world, and a lot of fathers have died, and the wife is left at home with a couple of kids, and somehow you have to make it work.
I'm thinking about myself because I happen to be a father too. But I'm now and then I'm leaving city and go to the wood, to my wood cabin, as you called it. And once I'm alone, I start thinking what a shitty father figure I am, and how wrong my life is. And today I caught myself thinking, what makes a good father figure? And I couldn't reply. I couldn't find the answer. Probably there are many.
There's another concept called the man cave, that every man needs a cave to go to. For example, my grandfather had a house. It was paid for. He went down into the oil fields off of the Gulf of Mexico, and before he married my grandmother, he wanted her to have a house fully paid for. So he treated her like a princess for some time. But he had a wooden garage out in the back of the property where he would go. He had a little ice box there with his beer in it and a pinup calendar of some sexy girls and some of his tools to work on his car and some cigarettes. So that was his man cave. And I think at one point in time, a long time ago, we talked about the pictures of those dogs playing poker. Remember, there's that picture of the dog playing poker, and I was saying it was the most horrible thing in the world. And you said,
My kind
"Oh,
of art.
you'd like to have that in your man cave." So I think men need a time away from women and all the to-do lists and honey, do this and do that, and we need this, we do that. Like, women drive men crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and you made me think about the picture again. I don't know who painted these dogs playing poker, but I loved it because incongruity, what's the word? I don't remember. Because dogs, they don't play poker. And I would like to mention that I was raised by my mother and grandmother mostly, and I have some relatively minor issues in the grand scheme of things. Hence the poor self-esteem, and stuff. So maybe that is why I love that pictures, that incongruent pictures.
Well, the other thing is that I know any number of people where the father died early or the father was taken off to prison for something, and the young man, especially if it happens around adolescence, or 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, like around that time, if it happens around there, then the man is caught in what is called arrested development. So the young man, let's call him a teenager, wasn't able to really just be a teenager because he had to help his mom with this and help his mom with that and do this. And early responsibilities were put upon him. And, it is just how it happened. And nowadays with, like I said, so many wars, so many displaced people, there's, wars going on and, also earthquakes and floods and fires. And, there's all this like disaster going around and everywhere. And, men go off to fight the battles. They go off to try to fight, for the motherland or whatever. And the women are back at home with their, couple of kids just trying to make it work. So I don't know, it's easy for me to say, don't be too harsh on yourself, but it's very hard. And I don't know. I mean, I raised two daughters and, I think, well, maybe I spent too much time on them. I didn't spend enough time on myself. Like I wasn't selfish enough, and I feel bad because I wasn't selfish.
Well,
we just all feel bad.
well, you're in therapy, so you can be completely honest and open.
Well, yeah, I mean, like we have some followers that live in Germany. A very wonderful woman friend of mine, Lydia. Sadly, she lost her husband, Paul, about a year ago. And then she had to struggle with some of her own personal health issues. And there's another person who's probably going to, join us. His name is Christian. And he's written about this. He lives, I don't know if he's in Switzerland or Germany, but, he has a ship or a sailboat or a yacht. And he accidentally hit his foot. And then he didn't take care of the foot, and then slowly the foot is just having more and more problems, and he's like struggling with that. And it seems like everybody's dealing with some kind of loss, of someone they loved, or their job, or their income, or their kids have moved away. And I think that how to deal with loss is one of the challenges that we live in. I mean, basically, what I do is I just tell people I've changed my phone number and I don't talk to them anymore. Or I tell people I've gone out of town, but I didn't really go anywhere. So I kind of go into what I call a cocoon. For you, it's like a man cave or your cabin. It's the same thing. Like, we're wounded and we got to go go someplace and lick our wounds like a dog. Dog playing poker.
Uh, do you have Father's Day in the US, right? When is it?
Yes, Father's Day is going to be coming up, and it's a very strange holiday. We're going to have Mother's Day on May the 14th, and then in June we have Father's Day on the 18th of June. So, yeah, I mean, we think about, I don't know, I sort of think that the child in us is always there, the child that lost the father. Yeah.
Not to change the subject, but do you know that prayer, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name?
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
I happen to like it for no apparent reason. I don't know why.
Yes, well, one of the things I like about it is because the person who's praying is actually asking for, give us this day our daily bread, which means, you're not asking for money or a summer house or a boat or a new car. You're just asking for what I need today. Please let me have, supplement you to allow me to have what I need for today. It's kind of like, it's pretty amazing prayer.
Yeah. When was the last time you recited it? Like a minute ago?
No, I mean, I said a little bit of it, but I don't know. Go ahead.
No, I happen to, in Russian, of course, because it's a line from the Bible, I think, and I happen to know it. And, say it a few times a day, maybe, in Russian.
I think it helps. I don't exactly understand how prayer or meditation or good vibrations or whatever you want to call it, I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I think the repetitive nature of it, like, calms our heart and calms our mind. And, 1962 or 3, I think, was the Vatican Council. And before 1963, all the masses were in Latin.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was growing up, the masses were said in Latin. And then after the 1960s, like 63 or something like that, the mass was said in the vernacular. So if you lived in Italy, you would hear mass in Italian. If you lived in, Texas, you'd hear mass in English. If you lived in France, you'd hear it in French. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a revolution. But pre-Vatican II, there used to be a prayer that was required of Catholics called the Angelus. And it was supposed to be said 5 times a day. And the bells would ring from the church, and people were reminded to say the Angelus. So, before dawn, and then at dawn, and then at lunchtime, and then in the afternoon, and then, in the evening. So you were supposed to pause 5 times a day and just remember that life is not to be taken for granted, which is,
you said that it was read in Latin before 1965. Do you know how it sounds in Latin?
Well, do I have some old prayer books that are in Latin? Yeah, I have some old prayer books, and but we used to have the prayer books would have English on the left and then Latin on the right. But
I did not know that.
Dominus vobiscum means God be with you. And so there was a lot of the phrases we knew by heart because we'd heard them 1,000 times. But I don't know, like there's.
You just mentioned translations. I thought that, there are different ways to say the Lord's Prayer. Based on translation, language, and denomination. I like it in English. I like how it sounds in English. And it surprises me that the meaning is exactly the same we have in Russian. I'm sure French people can say the same. Oh, any people. I don't know how they translated that.
Well, in French, one of the ways to say goodbye is adieu, which is actually means, I send you to the Lord, Dieu. And in Spanish, Dios means I send you to God. So let's suppose you and I were wandering around Dallas and we had a friend named Alex or somebody, and we were all eating at a Mexican restaurant or something. And then we go, okay, adios. And he would go to his work and I would go to my work and you would go to your work. So the expression adios is I send you away from me knowing that you're in God's good care, which that sounds good to me.
Well, it probably came from the practice of blessing the person as they leave. I remember the song. It was called "Vaya con Dios," right? Vaya con Dios. I guess it's a
good old song.
could be rearranged as a Dios or adios. And speaking of French, they always say ciao, or was it Italian? I don't remember. And ciao works both for goodbye and hello. I was totally confused first. Then I
think that's Italian, but I think some French people use it too. And then also, I discovered some years ago there's in Vietnamese you say chao bak, which sounds like chow, but chao bak also means goodbye or hello or something like that. But I mean, it's not spelled the same.
I know a few words in Spanish because you mentioned this escúchame all the time, and now I know vaya con Dios. I like Spanish. I like how it sounds.
Well, I like that song Escúchame. It's by a group called the Gypsy Kings, and it's quite lovely. I think it is a Cuban group, so maybe some of our listeners could, take a listen to that. Escúchame by the Gypsy Kings.
It translates as excuse me or wait a bit. What's the translation?
No, escucha means listen to me.
Oh, listen to me.
So when I say escúchame, I don't want to be excused. I just want you to listen.
Okay. I was wrong. Silly me. I thought you were apologizing.
Oh, heck no.
Okay.
No, it's just, we get excited talking about ideas and thinking of new episodes and thinking about who's listening and who might listen. And I'm pretty excited that you set up Spotify. You set up a couple other venues for our Petroma therapy. Where are the places that we have it set up now?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Google podcasts, and I'm going to try Apple Podcasts next week when I get a chance, because that requires iCloud account, and I only had one, and I thought maybe I'd set up another one for Petroma therapy. But Spotify immediately, I don't know, they published our podcast like immediately in a minute after I registered. Did you like it?
I know. I did like it. At first I was a little surprised because it's pink. I know that you...
Yeah, I was using whatever it is they offered. Just the first thing they offered, I pressed OK. We can change it, by the way, if you don't like it.
Okay, well, escúchame, but excuse me and listen to me. Okay, one of my all-time mantras is you only have one time to make a first impression.
What?
So pink would be the color I would never choose. But, it's okay. Pink is like lightweight, puffy, cloud, girl stuff. But it's okay. Let's not freak out. I mean, let's not say I just tried to accept that pink could be part of the softer side of Petroma therapy. But, I was getting a phone. I got a new phone about a year ago, and a friend of mine was going to buy me a phone case. And he was looking at these phone cases. He was laughing. He said, look at this one. It's like princess pink with little diamonds on it. I go, hell no. And then he showed me another one. It was like, camouflage gear, like for a war. I go, no. And then anyhow, I finally got one that's kind of like a sort of like brushed pinkish orange, which is okay. But I don't know, there's just like so much therapy we need.
You mentioned the first impression. I always wondered why first impressions are so important. I don't know how the mind works, but they are.
Well, yeah, I remember my first impression of you was you were
Oh,
had
man.
posted something about this violin, and then somebody said, "Well, what is what is that?" And you gave a very sharp comment back to the person. That I wrote to you like, "Well, way to detonate your audience," and you wrote back, "Well, you sure know a lot of big words." And then so we kind of started off with this battle,
Hmm.
battle of words.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that. That probably because first impressions are really not important to me. I don't remember first impressions, and my opinion of people tends to change over time.
Well, you must have had some first impression of me. I was Texas, Texas.
No, I don't remember that. I have a short memory span.
Well, I know because you have long term COVID and you've been in the woods.
Yeah, COVID 20,
Yeah.
because I gained 20 pounds while I was working from home, and now I'm
Did
trying
you?
to get rid of them. Yeah, I call COVID 20. It's better than 19
Well,
or worse.
actually, I'm so sorry that I'm just making you feel bad, but I put on weight too, and I took off 50 pounds the past year.
So you may call it COVID 15.
No, 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 no. I don't have COVID. You know how I know
Oh,
I
you
don't
don't.
have COVID? Because I cook.
Maybe you
And if I
had.
can smell,
Okay.
oh, no, no, no. If you think you have COVID, then if you keep like, I don't know. I mean, some people got it and some people did it, but I just know I never got it. And I got
Mhm.
my shot and I could always smell because I love to cook. So if I could smell garlic or oregano or coffee, I knew I was good. And everyone else was like buying COVID tests and going for like the next test, the next test, the next test. Like, I go, why don't you just like go buy some garlic and make spaghetti at home? And they thought I was crazy. But, I don't know. I don't know. Well, talking a little bit more about horses, in Dallas, one of the symbols on the Mobil oil building was
Mm.
Pegasus. And, Texas is a big oil country and oil is important, but I like Pegasus. He's a winged horse. And, maybe we can ask our listeners if they'd like to make any comments below this episode about any horses or mythological figures. There's always the Trojan horse that was sent in to battle. So I don't know.
Yeah.
How should we wrap up this episode?
I would like to say that it's almost midnight at where I am at, and midnight feels a lot like noon, only there is no sun. Uh,
That's
and
so
if you don't
cute.
have any sun, if there is no sun, it's like night. Yeah, and that's how I would like to wrap it up. I
Well, very
just
good.
realized how late it is.
Very good. Well, goodbye to all our listeners, and we hope that you come back for our next episode. Adios.
Bye bye.